What was your approach to help bridge art and science?
You know, what really struck me, the Francis Crick Institute was a discovery research, is a discovery research center. And what really struck me, what I was trying to do was get to the humans behind the research and connect with them on their curiosity about the world. And that is really what drives them to study the same molecule for like 40, 50 years, you know, like real passion and curiosity about how on earth are, um, human bodies are made and develop and get sick, and it's just that passion is a place of meeting, I think, between the artists and the scientists. And so I really learned there how to kind of nurture that, and then to see where we can take the stories. Yeah.
Tell us about a pivotal moment in your early career as an artist.
At the Crick, I got to work a lot with the microscopy team there, and was just really drawn in by the beauty of the human body at the microscopic scale. And simultaneously, outside of working at the Crick, I was also getting more engaged with the climate crisis and thinking about, like, what can I do that's meaningful, feeling quite uh, what's the word, kind of like there was an activation in me, like that I hadn't quite found an outlet yet, for a way to express my feelings about where humanity was going. And so that time with the microscopy team really coincided with me kind of returning to my art practice, and I started painting, and I started talking to a few people about murals and street art. And a friend of mine had a wall in South London that she was hoping to get painted. And so there was just this kind of like, I mean, I could try and paint on your wall. Like, I've never done anything that big, but like, maybe. And so we started talking.
Can you tell us how your practice transformed into a process of unlearning and remembering?
Working as an artist now for 7 years after that kind of gap of working in museums. And I think at the beginning of this later return, um, I was very much still trying to kind of conform to dominant understandings of how we represent or talk about the nature crisis in the public space, which is still, largely from that kind of more scientific, rational angle. And it's so important, the data and the research that's taking place. But I think I was going through a process of unlearning, like in terms of maybe revisiting the hierarchies, over a few years of kind of questioning how much that data and those messages that I was at the beginning kind of focusing on trying to communicate actually resonate, um, with those that I'm interacting with my work, and how much do they feel like they're talking down to, or um, uh, giving in a one directional way. Um, so there was, having worked solidly in science for, well, about 6 years at that point, I think there was a period of time where I was like, I love working with researchers, and I find their work and their practices and their questions fascinating, but there's something missing for me here, and searching for that. And whilst not wanting to cut those ties, kind of wanting to kind of open them a little bit, kind of unravel them a little bit and look a bit more closely and think about what for me would feel more authentic in terms of trying to start conversations with the public about our relationship to nature today.
Why remembering?
It was a big period of kind of rediscovering, re-meeting myself, and also reconnecting to, you know, my inner child, my childhood, kind of those foundational beginnings of like how I was taught as a young person to interact with the world in a way that was with humility and play and curiosity and magic and, you know, being excited about the unknown and, you know, those kind of things. So it took me a few years to get to a place where I was like, okay, this balance, there is a harmony that can happen here, and I can kind of see how I can integrate these different aspects and interests that feel more roomy to me. And, you know, I talk about a remembering as well as a kind of unraveling, because I was also going through a period of, I guess, reconnecting with my own ancestry and my familial links to different areas of the world, doing a lot of my own research into different folklores and practices, indigenous practices and knowledge. Stories. I think I was searching for stories that were part of my lineage and my inheritance, from my Caribbean roots as well as from my English roots. And so it was becoming more familiar and absorbing those, and kind of listening to the wisdom in those, and finding the patterns and the kind of repeated motifs and the different names for the same kind of human experience or human understandings from different parts of the world. So yeah, I think that's still an ongoing process of that's kind of like dance between unraveling and remembering, and then weaving, coming back to weave it together. Yeah.
How did you come about embodied ecology?
I came across the term embodied ecologies, and this was through a series of essays by anthropologists, led by Dr. Andrea Ford at the University of Edinburgh. And they were writing a lot about human health in the environment, but within this framework of embodied ecologies. And I think I was kind of trying to find a term to describe or a framework for my practice to kind of be able to help people kind of get a hook on what it is that I'm interested in.
How and why did you apply embodied ecology to your creative practice?
We're inseparable from our environments. So, you know, they were talking a lot about the ways in which we are absorbing the different chemicals and nutrients and atmospheric, you know, particles of the environment, how that's shaping our bodily health. But for me, I've taken on the term embodied ecology, and I've started writing about it, exploring in my Substack, like, what does it mean as a creative practice? Because for two reasons. I think one, I'm really curious about how we can break down the sense of boundary between human and nature, understand ourselves as nature, as part of it, and literally think about the different ways that we are moving through nature constantly, shaping it and being shaped by it, emotionally and physically. And my practice has really kind of lent into that over the last few years. But then also, I guess it's pushing the understanding of ourselves as nature further to think about life cycles and the fact that we are returning to nature at some point. So I talk quite a lot about humans as humus, the original word for human. And there is this interest for me in looking directly at the reality of, at some point, our bodies are returned, and there's no escaping that. And there is this cycle of life that we are part of. So we were temporarily animated now, as this entity. But I guess, so I'm always kind of trying to think about different ways of how we are part of nature, we exist in nature, we belong in nature, but we also belong to nature. And it kind of like, I quite like challenging the hierarchies of who's really in control here.
Bryony, thank you so much for using your talent to make nature research more accessible for all and inspiring us to be more playful and colorful. To learn more about Bryony's work, visit the link down below. Thanks for tuning in to Rewild Yourselves in Conversation series. To learn more about the inspiring Rewild Yourself champions and for more ways to find your wild, visit rewildyourself.com or join the conversation on Instagram at rewildyourself.